Hey guys, what's up and welcome to I believe this is episode 54. Yes, Patience 101. And we are talking everything patience today. I think it's so important that we discuss patience. But before I begin, I just want to introduce myself again. My name is Angie Roll. For those who don't know, I am the host of Love Inspiry podcast. And our mission here is to build more powerful, transparent, and durable relationships. We're all about longevity. My focus is millennials and but anybody in between, after, before, you are welcome to join and listen in and see if you can get some intake on this. So this podcast came about because I love, for those who don't know, I love changing my phone case. I love changing my MacBook case. I love changing my iPad case. I just like different cases because it makes me kind of feel like something new, something different, something fresh. So I love doing it. So I went on Amazon one day and I ordered me a case for my MacBook. It was great. I got it in the mail, of course, ran down, got it, and I tried to put the case on, and I could not get the case on for the life of me. I was struggling so bad to get this case on. And I'm like switching, I'm flipping it around. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I go on Amazon and I'm about to write a review. I'm like, this is not for MacBook Pro 82289. Like, this is false advertisement. I'm getting ready to go off. Come to find out that all you had to do was read the simple directions, patience, and realize that I just had to, it was an easier way, a more excellent way for me to get this case on. I was not doing it how I was supposed to do, and I was leaning on my own understanding and not the understanding of the directions. So that's basically what happened with that. So I quickly deleted, I didn't press send or, submit. I quickly deleted my review. Something just told me try it again. I tried it and it worked. And that's when I realized patience, my friend. Patience is so essential, not just in everyday life, and we need patience in our relationships, whether it is our husband leaving the cabinets open, whether it's our wife not knowing what she wants to eat even though she said multiple times she's hungry, anything big like finances or what you're expecting from a relationship. We need patience. And you guys know me. You guys know I love to give the definition of patience for understanding and helping people understand the technical definition of it. And it's the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, right? Trouble or suffering without getting angry or upset. Typically, the result of us lacking patience is us getting frustrated, us lashing out. The communication becomes a little bit more aggressive. And I did a class about a year or two ago, I want to say, about the word tolerate and my disdain for that word tolerate in relationships, because it comes off as if you have to suffer to accept something. And I talked about how you don't want to just tolerate your partner, right? You don't want to just, I just hate that word so much. And so in it, I talked about the difference between agreeing and choosing to understand somebody, and how it all came about because of the agree to disagree phrase, and how I felt like it was kind of passive aggressive statement, almost to kind of shut the person up as opposed to come to some kind of understanding. Think about when you say agree to disagree. You're not saying agree to disagree to come to resolution. You're saying it because you want to end the conversation. So my whole point about doing this class was, why don't we agree to understand where this person is at in their thinking? As our partner, we should be wanting to understand who we are with. And understanding, I'm starting to realize as I grow and develop in my own marriage. Shout out to my husband. The day that I'm filming this podcast, July 29th, 2022, we are 16 years into marriage. So, babe, happy anniversary to you. This podcast will be coming out, I think, August 12th, so it'll be well past our anniversary, but every day is a good anniversary with you. So I just wanted to say that real quick. But we don't understand, and understanding, I'm really starting to, like I was saying, to understand, hence I'm really starting to understand as I get older, grow and develop in my own marriage, that understanding truly is the key to relationships, and to be patient with your partner. You have to understand who they are as an individual. Patience is understanding. And a lot of us are impatient in our relationships because we don't know our partner. We don't know who our partner is. We don't know who we are dealing with. We're not taking the time to build the proper foundation to understand that there is a reason for everybody's reaction. There is a reason for how people deal with certain things and certain issues within their personally, individually, right? And then within their relationship as well. If you have a partner who has had sexual abuse trauma, you know the fragility behind it, right? So some triggers they have and responses that they have towards things, they're not going to upset you because you know that. If you have a partner who is deficient in one area, you should know how they were raised to understand why they would think the way they do, or why they do the things that they do. Understanding, and this is what I'm getting at here, understanding is going to help you develop patience in your relationship. But how do you get to a point where you have the patience to want to understand, right? Because we need the patience, the desire to want to understand. This comes from building your solid foundation. This comes from really truly honing in on if you truly desire this person in life. Do you truly desire to go through ups and downs with them? Do you truly desire to experience life with them? You have to first have a desire to truly want to understand. I want to say this. Too many of us are in relationships and we are not discussing real life problems. All this needs to be done at the foundation. For example, it's okay for you to discuss what makes you tick. It's okay for you to discuss what makes you impatient. This is a question that we're not talking about. This is something that we're not talking about before we enter a committed relationship. And it's something that we should be consistently discussing as we go on. What aggravates you? What angers you? What frustrates you? What gets under your skin? These are all things. And I know some people can look at it and say, oh, it's negative to talk about these things. I don't want to talk about what frustrates me. It's kind of negative talk. But in the end, it's going to make a negative situation positive. It's going to make you understand your person better. And the more you understand your person, the more great your relationship will become, because you will know how to filter certain communications. You'll know when to stop and say, okay, this is a little bit of a trigger for this person, so I'm not going to say this because it can escalate the situation. You can't do that without understanding. If you want to know why you're getting into so many arguments, it's because you don't understand who you're with. And then we'll get to the other half of that later on. But another thing I wanted to highlight is we get impatient with people being who we know they are, right? So, for example, if you have a friend that is kind of self-centered, you've been friends with them for 30 years, you know that they can be a little self-centered. You know it's a bad quality, which we all have bad qualities, right? We all have something that is a little bit negative about us, or something that we can be working on to build more quality relationships. But let's say you have this friend and you've been friends with them for 30 years. You know they can be self-centered. 8 years into the friendship, you can't get mad that you were going through something and they are engulfed in whatever it is they have going on all the time, because you knew who they were. You knew what they were about and you chose to accept it. And this is what happens in our relationship. We get 7 years into a relationship and then we decide that this person, we don't like what they're doing, when we have let them and allow them to continue on to this, to continue on to act this way and to have this behavior. We can't get upset. We have to be patient. We can't get upset because somebody is being who they are, like I said, and for years they have been who they are, and then all of a sudden 10 years later get upset because they are who they are. Like, that's not how this works. If you have an issue from the beginning, then that's something that you need to address from the beginning. You can't let stuff fester on, and then, because now at this point you have brought the impatient part on yourself. Everything that you are experiencing is your own fault because you did not address it within that that time frame that it should have been addressed, or it should have been, not saying that they would have changed, but at least you would have some sound mind of, okay, this is what I'm getting into, this is what it is. When this happens in relationships, marriages, almost all the time, if you start becoming impatient about small things, I guarantee you it's because, and I'm talking about people that's 7, 8 years in, when you start becoming impatient about small things, I guarantee you that it's because you have bigger problems. And now all of a sudden you're nitpicking because you've been tolerating these bigger problems, or you've been tolerating the smaller things because, the bigger problems weren't present at the time, but the bigger problems may have become present at this time. So let's say you find out your partner has been lying. All of a sudden you don't like the fact that they're messy, when really you're not upset that they're messy. You're upset that they lied about something. So it's hard to put up with smaller issues as a couple and bigger issues at the same time. Everything just starts getting on your nerves. So this is why it's important to address this at the beginning stage of your relationship. And I hope I understand that to help with your level of patience. I hope I explained that well. Basically what I'm saying is, if you can't handle, if you can't get through the small things, ultimately you're not going to be able to get through the bigger things in life. So let's start at the beginning, right? Patience is a personal thing, and this is what we're talking about today. Patience 101. It's a personal thing, and why you don't have it is up to you to determine that. It's not up to your partner. Your lack of patience has everything to do with you and not the person. And this is why I say that. If you grew up in a household where perfection was idealistic, right? You couldn't make no mistakes. You had to dot every I. You had to cross every T. If you grew up in this kind of household, that can cause the expectation of perfection in your relationship naturally. So when your significant other is not firing on all cylinders as you desire, your level of patience is going to drop. That is a you problem. That's not a them problem. If you have relationship trauma, right? Like you were lied on, cheated on, you get into a new relationship and you lack patience because the person hasn't called you back in a timely manner. That's not a them problem. That's a you problem. If you want what you want and you start tantruming when you don't get it, that is a lack of patience, and it's a you problem. It's not a them problem. So these are examples, and what I'm getting at here today and helping you understand is that your level of patience in your relationship begins and it starts with you. So I wanted to share some questions that you need to ask yourself to determine why you don't have patience with your partner. Why you can't seem to have patience with the stage that they're in within their relationship. So that's what we're here to talk about in this particular segment. The first thing I want you to ask yourself is, do I treat myself with compassion? Do you treat your own self with compassion? Because if you don't have patience with yourself, you're not going to have patience with anybody else. Think about how hard you are on your failures. What do you what do you think success is to you? Like, how do you, all of these things, especially failures, how you think of setbacks in your life, how you think about them for yourself is how generally you're going to be in your relationship. So if you're hard on yourself, you're probably going to be hard on your partner. Number 2, do I struggle with control? Do you struggle with control? Because a lot of this stuff is, and just going back to the example that we laughed about earlier about husband leaving cabinets open. And of course, it's easy to just close the dang on cabinet, right? But is it really hurting anything that the cabinet is open? Not necessarily. So it's a control issue of just wanting to have things in order. And we're talking about that in the next episode, going all in with somebody you're just dating. But just being in a space with somebody where you have to share things and share experiences, it can be kind of a struggle to let back on some of that control. So do you have a possible struggle with control? There's a difference in being a controlling wanting to control yourself and what happens with you, and then having a controlling spirit. Okay, I don't have a controlling spirit. Like, I don't want to control everything, but when it comes to what happens with Angie, Whether it's with anybody else, if I'm involved, then I tend to be like, okay, we need to do X, Y, and Z. This needs to happen. But I don't have a controlling spirit. So there's a difference. Number 3, could you possibly suffer with anxiety? Because anxiety, depression, all of that will cause you to lack patience in your relationship. Again, these are all things that are you issues. They're not issues to project onto our partner and to make them feel like they're doing something wrong because we have something internal going on with us. All right? If you have anxiety, there's things that you can do. Meditation. If you are a medication person, you can get on medication. Number 4, are you stressed? Because stress, and I've said this time and time again, for those who have been with me on this podcast for a long time, you know that stress was one of those things in my relationship that kind of, when I was working in corporate America and doing taxes and stuff, I came home stressed all the time. I did not know how to leave work at work because I was just so angry. I was so angry. I absolutely despise my job. I despise the manager, the supervisor, or my supervisor. I didn't despise my supervisor, but her supervisor and his manager, and I just hated it. And it came off, not that I was angry with my husband or he was necessarily doing anything wrong. I was just stressed, and stress caused my patience to diminish. So, with all that being said, identifying internally what the problem is, because our relationships and our marriage starts with us, who we are, what we're bringing to the table. And no, I'm not talking about money in your career. I'm talking about character. I'm talking about personality. I'm talking about integrity. What are you bringing? Patience begins with your expectations. This is Patience 101, guys. It begins with your expectations and it ends with your mouth. And what I mean by this is, generally in a relationship, what you have expected will cause you to lose patience when it doesn't happen. This is why people, relationship coaches, you hear them all the time talk about unrealistic expectations, and I have multiple videos out on that about unrealistic expectations and how unrealistic expectations will get you behind in a whole lot of trouble if you're in a relationship. 2, it will keep you single because now you have become picky. And 3, I always tell people, stop having this long list of expectations for people, because I guarantee you on that list, you're not writing down anything negative. You're writing down a fairy tale person that does not exist. We all are effed up. We all have something wrong with us, something that is not so pleasant about us. So when you write down a list and you're writing down all these expectations, most people don't have anything negative on there. So what's the point of the list? Because you just have this fairy tale person that does not exist. They just don't exist. I'm sorry to tell you, no matter how great you think your husband is or your wife is, they have something wrong with them, something that won't be appealing to the next person. You might be able to tolerate it, you might be able to deal with it, but it's not going to be appealing to the next person. So, I'm talking about patience, beginning with your expectations. It starts there. If you have this long list of expectations and this person doesn't meet that fairy tale list that you have, your patience is automatically going right then and there. Because you're not going to want to stick around. This person did one simple thing wrong. Now all of a sudden you're done with them. That ends with your mouth and how you react to it. How are you going to show up when you have, when you are in the realm of impatience? Your mouth is going to determine the trajectory of the conversation and ultimately your relationship. Because if you respond to everything that happens in your relationship, baby, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be something that is beneficial for your relationship. Sometimes you just have to let things go. And I'm not talking about big things. I'm talking about small, stupid things. If your husband leaves the cabinet to open, just close the cabinet behind him. What's the point of saying that? At this point, you're 7 years into marriage. He ain't closing the cabinet. Just close it. You know, stuff like that. It's important that in the beginning of our relationship, we check our expectations. In the duration and through our relationship, we check how we're responding and how we're showing up in the conversation when our patience starts to diminish or when we feel like we're uncontrollable at the time. I remember when I was in the military, just talking about patience, they literally made us hurry up and wait. When we were getting somewhere, they literally just rushed us there just to sit for hours, like money long. We was there for hours and hours and hours. Like, at first I was like, bruh, come on, like, what are we doing? But over time, I realized that they were teaching us patience, right? We're not going to get everything we want in the time frame that we wanted. Same thing with relationships. And over time, it became natural. It became, all right, I know I'm going to show up and I'm going to have to wait a few hours to get my PT uniform or get my blues or whatever the case may be. Like, it's just going to take time. I had a job, like I told you guys earlier, when I was working in corporate America, where I did taxes, business taxes, and it required me to talk to the IRS a lot. For those who don't know, you call the IRS, guess what? You're going to be on hold for a good while. Except if you call in the morning, sometimes you can get in within 15 minutes. But you're going to be on hold with the IRS. Over time, because I practiced it, it became natural. Sitting on the phone, listen, I get on that phone, I be on my phone like, getting it, just waiting. But over time, it just became natural. And that's what I want to leave with you guys today. Patience is a practice. It's not something that's inherited overnight. And this is why you have to show patience to yourself. You have to understand that you're flawed and you make mistakes too. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We have to be intentional every day in diving into how we are reacting. Patience is about not being frustrated. It's about not being angry and argumentative and just extra. So we have to practice channeling those emotions. It's normal for us to feel these things, to feel anger, to be frustrated, to be extra at times. But how we channel those emotions, that's what's going to determine how this plays out. How are we processing that emotion? Are we being intentional about how we portray that emotion to our partner? This is where communication comes into place. And it's like every time I think about relationships and I think about one thing, I'm like, well, you can't have this without this. Understanding patience, it comes with conversation. It comes with communications. It comes with expressing to your partner, just having that simple conversation of feelings. And okay, in this space right now, I am feeling a little bit impatient. The balance is finding that moment to discuss your concerns without coming across aggressive, right? Because we believe there's a time and a place for everything. I always tell people, like, you're not going to have a serious conversation with your husband at the family cookout. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to have a serious conversation. You know, we go to church a lot. I'm not finna blow up on my husband at church because he did something wrong to me, or vice versa. He's not going to do that to me. It's just not going to happen. There's a time and a place for everything, and there's a time and a place that you need to just know when to say what, and then understanding will help you understand what to say or identify what to say. You need to know when to say it and what to say it. And it starts, practicing these things, it starts with the smaller things in your relationship. So focus on small areas. Like, don't just try to just tackle the gigantic things. It starts with the small things. Focus on smaller areas of your relationship and be intentional about practicing with those. Like the cabinets, that's something basic, right? Or like your significant other deciding what to eat, or if your husband leaves the toilet seat down or up. It's those smaller things. They're going to help you be patient with the bigger things in life. You have to practice every single day. You have to be intentional. And this is why in relationships, I do not teach desire. I don't do it. If you come to me and you don't have a desire to be in a relationship, it's nothing that anybody can do for you. The desire has to come from you. It has to come from within. Nobody can teach you that. Nobody can give it to you. And for you to be able to be patient, you have to first have the desire. A lack of patience in your relationship, it invites dysfunction. And you don't want dysfunction in your relationship. You don't want that. When you're planning in your garden, if you try to pick up fruits and vegetables before they are ready, they won't look right, they won't taste right, they won't be right. But if you wait until it's right, now of course you may have a bad seed, right? And we're still talking about patience here, but you may find out that you did something wrong and that you can do better in your garden. When you lack patience in your relationship, nothing else will be right. It's like that garden, it'll be messed up, it won't taste right. Everything will be an argument. You have to have that patience to develop and grow your garden into what you want it to be. And if you get a bad seed, okay, you know what? I know what I need to do differently this time. All right? So we're 28 minutes in right now. I didn't plan to talk this long on it, but this is Patience 101. Before we end, I just want to elaborate on patience starting with us. Many of us aren't happy in our circumstances. We're not happy with the decisions that we made in life and where we ended up or whatever the case may be. It could have nothing to do with our partner. It could have everything to do with our partner, whatever the case may be. But we need to practice gratitude. And this is I'm preaching to myself right now. Practicing gratitude, and that will help us be better with patience, not with just ourselves, but with our partner as well. We'll focus more on the journey as opposed to the destination, and I promise you that you will start to develop patience, but it starts with those small things. It starts with attacking those small things. So this is just the first episode. We're going to go Patience 102, 103, 104, because patience is such a big topic and something that we all we need, and we need to open up the conversation and discuss it. So make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to share this with somebody who needs to hear it. Rate us, just share it with a friend, guys, and we hope to see you guys on next week. Next week we'll be talking about going all in with somebody you are just dating. We are talking facts, I'm bringing statistics, all of that stuff. I'm not just going to talk about ish, but we're going to bring some statistics to help people understand that. Of course, I'm going to give a little of my opinion. But we're going to end today's show with a quote Gandhi said: "To lose patience is to lose the battle." Guys, you don't want to lose the battle. So I'll see you guys all in the next podcast. I hope you guys have a blessed day. See you next time.